Hi, everyone. I'm sitting here in front of the fire today, and I thought I would record a short video for us to have a chat about what's going on the planet related to the Epstein file release and related to the cult that Epstein and others have been running on this planet. It's important that we understand the energetic dynamics, the spiritual war that has been playing out for a very long time on our planet. And I have some things that I want to read here that better state the truth of what is happening. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll continue to have a little chat about what this means for us on the planet. So we are all waking up to the fact that this planet has seen a large-scale infiltration of evil across many centuries, across many countries, sectors, and leadership roles. What we have seen in the Epstein files and similar global revelations is the horrific physical evidence of a satanic cult that has operated in the shadows for ages. This evidence includes some of the most gruesome crimes against humanity that we have ever seen. Evidence ranges from physical and biological warfare to sex trafficking of minors to murder and blatant disregard for human life to money laundering and theft, just to name a few. The crimes are extraordinarily extensive and have reached a level of global scale planetary criminal activity that this world has never seen before. This group, this cult or cabal, consists of political leaders like Donald Trump, corporate leaders like Jeff Bezos, and elite members of society, media, and entertainment. This group's evil agendas to subjugate and harm humanity have been driven by a negative consciousness born from the ancient entity known as Baal. The cult of Baal is known throughout our history for its practices of ritual satanic sacrifice and the total and complete subjugation of others. Their primary weapon is the inversion of consciousness, a process that twists the soul away from its own light, fueling competition, greed, violence, and war. And as the light is now rising on planet Earth, we see this weaponized state of consciousness for what it truly is: a violation of our divine rights as souls and a violation to our right to heaven on earth as a human family. We are here today, together, in this way, on YouTube, to reclaim our divine right to heaven on earth, free from the subjugation of the Baal consciousness. This is a counterspell. All who are participating in this are participating in a counterspell. As we rise, the earth rises, humanity rises. So we rise together today in this way for the freedom and liberation of humanity. The evidence coming to light shows that Epstein's control over world leaders was not done in isolation, but was orchestrated at an even higher level. It appears that Epstein's authority resides in the palaces of Saudi Arabia. Let me be clear, the Baal cult is no longer welcome on planet Earth. Baal himself is no longer welcome on planet Earth. As humanity awakens, we are all returning to our original source virtues: compassion, integrity, courage, unconditional love. We are going through the great awakening right now. And together we can rise in the power of justice to say no more. No more will you steal our children. No more will your shadow and violence be upon the earth. I proclaim today through this transmission and through all who are connected to this and watching and all who are carrying the light, that the Christ light is now ignited in the hearts of all. And we see through the tricks of a cult that has no power in the light of day. I proclaim and decree that all shadow kings, corrupt government leaders, corrupt members of monarchies, and corrupt CEOs are hereby banished from planet Earth. It's important for us all to know and remember that this is the end of a grand drama that has been playing out since the times of Atlantis. Atlantis was a very real and very magnificent civilization that existed over 10,000 years ago in harmony with other Edenic civilizations like Avalon and Lemuria. This time in our ancient past was a golden era where humanity lived in harmony with the stars. However, as the Baal consciousness, a satanic frequency and consciousness that was born from a negative star race, infiltrated the leadership of Atlantis, it grew into a distorted power structure, much like what we are seeing today. That distorted power structure of Atlantis sought to dominate other lands, such as ancient Avalon and Lemuria, who were still living in harmony with Earth and each other and the stars. This led to a global fracturing and the eventual fall of that great era. The fall of Atlantis resulted in what we remember as the Great Flood. This event plunged humanity into a long, dark age of amnesia, and we are just now coming out of our dark ages and continuing to heal from that event as we see the repeat pattern of that rise of corruption. For thousands of years, this parasitic negative force has used humanity's state of amnesia to keep us in cycles of suffering. However, by naming this ancient shadow and remembering our true history, we strip it of its influence to harm us. Because the light of truth is now reaching the deepest corners of these shadows, the spell is broken. For thousands of years, humanity has struggled with the compartmentalization of trauma and violence, effectively splintering the soul of humanity. As this trauma compartmentalization has occurred, the cult of Baal has risen in power, feeding off of that compartmentalization in humans. This extreme compartmentalization of the human psyche has allowed these certain groups of humans to exploit the trauma of humanity through their satanic agendas. These evil humans have used humanity's trauma as an offering for the negative extraterrestrial entity named Baal, also while infiltrating various monarchies, governments, and global corporations to gain power over the masses. Baal is one of the ancient gods that some humans have remembered and have continued to worship in modern times. Yet many humans have also remembered the gods and goddesses of light, the powerful ET and star race beings who have sought to support humanity's rise. We have seen these beings in our ancient spiritual texts and glyphs from Egypt and India and in our Greek mythology. Many cultures on earth have remembered their archetypes, have remembered their stories, have remembered the ways they have guided us through the ages. We have the indigenous cultures and spiritual traditions of this world to thank for their dutiful and devoted service to the truth and for the attempt to preserve these ancient stories in the best ways we could through our dark ages. We have remembered the ancient wisdom and wars of the Titans, star races, even while we have been confused about the full truth. I want to name and thank Paul Anthony Wallace, a former archdeacon of the Anglican Church in Australia, who you can find on this channel and on his own. And I recommend that the public follow his research for more information about our ancient history and the truth regarding the ancient gods or powerful beings versus our true God, the one source to which we all belong. This era of confusion is coming to an end. And today we can celebrate the victory of the light. As we become willing to face and heal our individual and collective traumas, we all go free. As we rise in truth, the era of the negative satanic cult's influence reaches its final hour upon the earth. Understanding that the cult of Baal was brought here by a negative extraterrestrial entity or race helps us remember our true history and brings a broader perspective of truth that we've been missing for ages. And by remembering this grand drama of light versus evil and remembering our history with these powerful beings of the past, we can now choose our alliance with the light. Because planet Earth has been suffering from subjugation of evil for so long, it has been held in quarantine to allow humanity the space to face these shadows and to consciously choose the light. This choice is key to our return to the stars. As we choose love over fear and face our shadows with bravery and bring justice, the quarantine is lifted. We are now remembering our place among the galactic family of light, welcoming back those who can guide our evolution in the most loving, creative ways. And as we rise out of the shadows and choose our light, we also choose our ability to create. While the evil cult of Baal seeks to destroy and control, our inherent essence as souls is to amplify the creativity and genius of Source in the light. It is our divine right as humanity to experience the highest heavenly gifts of the cosmos, free from this level of subjugation and control. And all beings of light and love are welcome on this planet. And all beings are called to face their shadows. Because we find our true selves and our ability to love again when we are brave enough to face our shadow and choose justice and choose the light. So I call to all beings who are watching this, all beings who are serving the light on the planet, rise now. Now is our time to look this evil in the eye and to face our fears and to find what has been compartmentalized and suppressed within us, to say no more. We don't have to be afraid of this evil. We simply have to look it in the eye and say no more. Justice is now served. It's very easy in these sorts of situations to experience some fear about what might be happening on such a large, wide scale in relation to this kind of evil. And that's part of our spiritual journey as souls, is to remember that we actually are more powerful than the evil when we are willing to stop compartmentalizing the negativity on this planet, and when we are willing to see the truth and acknowledge it and rise in that truth and feel the hard things we need to feel about that, but to also be willing to bring justice. This level of evil cannot sustain itself. It requires the subjugation of others. It requires our agreement to that. And humanity has, in essence, agreed to that over time. Humanity has allowed this sort of subjugation to occur. That might be a hard truth to hear or to integrate. But when we choose the comfort of what we have been fed and given over seeing the full truth, and when we choose the comfort of suppression rather than feeling and seeing what is right in front of us, it gives these sorts of negative entities the ability to subjugate. So it is ultimately through our power and our soul contract with the light and with truth and with our own light that we rid this planet of this evil. Humanity has been experiencing what we would call large-scale egregores, consciousness entities, driven by this cult. These consciousness entities have been developed through various forms of media, entertainment, and idol worship. A few examples might be the MAGA egregore or consciousness entity, group consciousness, cult consciousness, that makes it easier for beings to be subjugated by the dark agendas on this planet, by those who seek to be in power and in control. So the MAGA cult is one. The Taylor Swift cult is one. The Beyonce cult is one. The Bridgerton cult is one. There are a number of consciousness entities, group consciousness entities, that this larger cult, the cult of Baal, feeds off of. When they can hypnotize a being through various forms of media, stadium tours, etc., it is much easier for them to subjugate that being in other ways, through other systemic control that has occurred on this planet. Starting to unpack the extraordinary reach that this cult has had on the planet is a big job. Not all of us are going to be able to unpack that individually, and nor do we need to. We simply need to stand for the highest truth and to name the highest truth, which has been done here, and to say no more. And we will seek justice. And we are not afraid of you, and we are not afraid of suppression tactics, intimidation tactics. We are not afraid of what you have had to do in the shadows, because we operate in the light. And ultimately, what has to hide in the shadows has no true power of its own. That power that seeks to hide in the shadows requires the buy-in of humanity, requires the blood and trauma of humanity to continue operating. Yet when we bring all of that out of the shadows and into the light, it can no longer continue operating, because the light is inherently stronger, more powerful, and has dominion. The light, love, and truth of Source has dominion on this planet. This planet is being returned to the dominion of our one true Source. And those that seek to play power games in the shadows will be destroyed. Those who seek to play those sorts of power games at the expense of the innocent will be destroyed. It's important that as beings who are on a spiritual path and wanting to embody the light, that we also remember that part of our power is being willing to name death. Part of our power is being willing to see death and not be afraid of it, and to call for death when it is warranted. Because otherwise we give our power away. So what we are doing on the planet right now is a large-scale soul retrieval for humanity, so that humanity might know its true power again, and so that humanity may remember how to use its voice in speaking truth and naming these atrocities and saying, we don't allow that. That's not allowed here on this planet. That's all it takes, is us collectively rising, as has been occurring in recent times, collectively rising to say, no, we actually don't allow that anymore. And when you tell us to look away, we won't. We will come after you and seek justice. So this requires us all to stand in our power as humans, as light workers, as those who are in communion with Source, as those who seek to uphold the virtues of Source. And the elimination of evil is also upholding a virtue of Source. I also want to talk about the way in which the darkness and the evil does support our spiritual evolution. So this is zooming out to say that this is a larger concept, and everything I just said about the elimination of evil on earth is true too. We've been in this large-scale drama, this battle between the dark and the light for a long time, but ultimately it's not a battle. Ultimately, what we are experiencing is the hiding of the light. The Satan consciousness. I'm going to talk about the Satan consciousness now because I've done a lot of work to understand it so that I'm not afraid of that consciousness, so that I know that I am Source embodied and that I can find all of these different aspects of consciousness inside of myself, and I can rise in my power to understand how these aspects of consciousness work in our universe, and also why, this situation has occurred on planet Earth in the way that it has. Yes, we have had unchecked evil. Yes, we have had unchecked corruption. Yes, the viral negative codes in human consciousness reached a level that is no longer being allowed on the planet. It is being ended. That's why this is all starting to come to light, because it has to. So yes, the earth has experienced an infiltration of evil that led to its almost demise. Also, from a bigger picture standpoint, when we think about the spiritual journey and we think about the soul finding its way back to its source empowerment, to its ability to know itself in its full power and to be its most empowered version of itself that it can be, that inherently requires navigating our way through some darkness, and it inherently requires finding where our power has been hidden. Where did we give our power over throughout time? Both in other lifetimes, this lifetime, where are we not actually fully embodied in our full power? And where might the Satan consciousness have hid some of that power? So while on the surface this can be a really horrific thing to look at and unpack, I'm referring to the Epstein files and what we're finding there. Also, we can zoom out and think about this as a massive treasure hunt for humanity. The Satan consciousness has hid a lot of humanity's light and power for a long time. And as we systematically peel back the layers and see all of these connections and see all of the ways that these representatives of the Satan consciousness on this planet, how they have been attempting to subjugate and control humans, and how they have essentially been hiding the light of humanity through their consciousness control programs and through the giving of power over to them. When we start to wake up to that, we can realize, well, I can just call that power back to myself. I will no longer idol worship Beyonce, because now that is my power. The power I've given to her by seeing her in this elevated, elite, powerful position, whatever, I'm going to call that back to myself because I'm just as powerful. These are the sorts of things that as souls we start to realize are part of this massive treasure hunt. That part of my soul's power and light has been given over to this person or to that person or to this system or to the larger cult because of fear. So there are all of these ways that we slowly but surely throughout time just give our power over to these entities and these beings. Like, this is very much like a shamanic process for humanity, finding the demons, right? And some of these demons are like embodied in beings, but also in us. We experience the demonic or satanic consciousness also at times. And so as a humanity, we are learning about how that shows up and where we have hidden our own negativity from ourselves, where we have not integrated that shadow, where we have allowed violence or greed or control to override our true source aligned virtues that we can embody. And when we go through that process, we're finding all of these pieces of soul treasure that we've lost, that have been hidden by the Satan consciousness. So I think it's helpful for us to not only look this in the face and in the eye and say, we are coming for you and we will bring justice, but also to remember that we are on a massive spiritual evolution journey as humanity, and we are exiting an era where the darkness took hold and where humanity gave a lot of their power over to negative entities and said, okay, okay, I'll go to that stadium tour, sure. We think it's a fun thing we're doing, but we're actually giving power over to this larger cult that has existed. And when we start to realize how many people in authority positions have been feeding into this negative power structure, it can be quite alarming to the human system. Because as humanity, we have done that for ages. Even spiritual figures, we have given our power over to them, right? We see them in a particular light. We pedestal them. We think they are, the end all be all, or someone we should follow and worship and learn from. And all of a sudden, humanity has found itself subjugated to other beings. Humanity has been doing this for thousands of years. And so it's on us to wake up and say, no, I'm not going to idol worship. Yes, we want coherent, thoughtful, loving, constructive, creative leadership in this world. Having some leadership is a good thing, but giving all of our power over to leadership figures because we think that everything about them is something we should want or worship is the hard lesson that humanity is having to face right now. When we realize that actually some of these people we have idolized or followed actually are doing really dark things in the shadows to keep their power, that gives us a choice. That gives us a choice to come back into our own sense of self and empowerment and agency. And I also want to name how, even though it can be so alarming to recognize that so many spiritual teachers, gurus, etc., even figures who portray a version of spiritual teaching that we have bought into, when we recognize that some of these beings actually have done depraved, negative, horrific things in the shadows, that can leave us with this feeling of like Stockholm syndrome, this feeling of, is anyone safe? What can I trust? Who is trustworthy? What have I been taught? Is it all true? What's a lie? What is not? Like, this is a massive psychological deconstruction that we're having to go through as humanity that will take a little time. Yet, it's important to know that even when these negative entities are running the show, when they have been put in charge, essentially, there are galactic laws to contain that. Yes, it went beyond what is normally allowable in galactic law on this planet, which is why we're going to be experiencing a very large-scale justice and cleanup process on this planet. Also, when these beings are in power, there is a rule in place that says they have to show their hand. They have to show their secrets. They can't do it 100% in the dark. And so they've been doing that. Like, there are ways in which a lot of people in power have been revealing what they have been doing throughout time, but humanity has been too asleep, has been too subjugated at times to see it and to believe it. So even though some of our spiritual teachers and leaders have been implicated in this scenario and are actually working for the negative satanic consciousness on the planet, also they've been delivering spiritual teachings because it is incumbent on whoever is in charge on the planet to deliver the truth. Like, they do have to speak the truth, even while creating certain illusions or attempts at mind control that keep people from it. So it's like this fascinating game of them having to still reveal truth to give beings and souls a chance at evolving and finding their way back to source. And that's why, like, we have seen a lot of true spiritual content and teachings come out from beings who are actually working from the satanic consciousness. Because we have to remember that Satan is also reporting to God, okay? So yes, sometimes it gets way out of control. Yes, sometimes it goes way unchecked on a planet like this one, and then we have a very big problem on our hands. But also Satan works for God. Source has the ultimate say. And so Source has shown up on this planet and is continuing to show up, and the galactic teams of light are supporting this planet out of its darkness. That takes a little time, but it is happening. So we can look at the body of information that has been given to humanity through spiritual teachings, music, etc. Not all of it is wrong. Not all of it is bad. And it has all still been entangled in this matrix, this mind matrix on the planet that conceals aspects of the truth at times. And especially when we are in fear of what has been going on, we're not going to see the full truth. We're not going to be able to zoom out and see the full big picture of how these spiritual mechanics work throughout time. So I'm saying all of this not to say that what has occurred is okay, but to say that the archonic, demonic forces in this universe do have a place in this universe. They get to exist in this universe. What has occurred on this planet has gone above and beyond what we would normally want to see on a planet. It has become so depraved and dark and evil that we now have some very big, extreme corrections that have to happen on this planet. However, we have to also continue to wake up to the fact that humanity has allowed this. Yes, these powerful beings have sought to subjugate, and also humanity has allowed it. Both are true. So it's our turn now to say we don't allow it, to say we see the truth and we're not afraid to speak truth to power, and we're not afraid to stand up for justice, and we're not afraid at your attempts at subjugation, suppression, violence. We know ourselves as eternal souls, and you are not. So we want to look that evil in the eye, and we want to say, we know that you only gain power by feeding off of us, and we don't allow it anymore. And we have the power as a people, as a humanity, to kick them off the planet. They are not welcome here anymore. They can go play their games somewhere else, not here. So this is the type of empowerment we all want to find and seek within ourselves, and to remember that the level of evil we're seeing on this planet inherently has no power unless we give it to them. When we turn away, when we deny, when we suppress, when we compartmentalize, it allows them to compartmentalize in the ways that have happened. And I want to speak to that idea of compartmentalization for a moment too, because some might be asking, like, how is this level of evil even possible? Like, how does a world leader stand in front of people and put on this show of being a decent person? Donald Trump doesn't put on that good of a show, but like some do, some do. And some in the entertainment industry do a very good job of putting the show on and acting. Yet what is happening behind the scenes is horrendously depraved and this like bloodthirsty, power-hungry type of approach to life and to their positions on this planet. It's like when we see that, it can make one just like not even be able to comprehend. Like, how could someone put on this like illusion, this how could someone live this lie, basically? But we have to remember that when a being has been turned to the darkness, turned to this like satanic consciousness so fully, that they are operating at a level of psychological compartmentalization that allows them to have these like split personalities, right? So it's like in the shadows, we do the demonic, sadistic stuff to gain power, but then we're back in this personality when we come out of the shadows and we pretend, to have this other persona. That's the level of compartmentalization and psyche splitting that has happened for beings on this planet. And a lot of humans have experienced a level of psyche splitting because of this web of evil and negativity that has forced human consciousness to like not see truth, and has forced human consciousness to like be in these compartmentalized places where we don't heal the parts of ourselves that need to heal because we're just willing to put it over here and not look at it. So these beings, these entities that are part of this negative cult are expert in that. Like they are, like master's level expert in that. And what the rest of us need to work on is becoming master level experts in wholeness, in finding and retrieving all of those parts of ourselves that have been suppressed or have been hidden or have been in fear or have been, programmed to stay in the shadow or programmed to think negatively about ourselves or about source. And to bring all of that into the light so that we can operate as whole beings in communion, in source alignment. So as we unpack these sorts of things, it can be this like major psychological operation to go through. And a lot of people who have already been following this channel are already very much programmed and aligned for truth and source virtue and understand some of these polarities and these binary aspects of how this planet has been operating for a long time. And so we need to remember that as more and more of what has been truly evil on this planet comes to light and is no longer in the shadows, that's a good thing. That's a good thing because then we get to choose our alliance. We get to choose what is allowable here and what is not allowable. And that's a collective journey that we are taking. And it also requires all of us to speak truth and not turn away. You know, there's also an aspect of spiritual teaching that has occurred that is very much a form of bypassing, you know, saying that like talking about the cult or looking at their information or dissecting the Epstein files or whatever, like just feeds them. It depends, you know, like it depends. Like, are you looping on it? Are you like looping in fear? Are you looping in a way mentally that is like keeping you in this place of not being able to operate in your own like creative agency on this planet? Or are you engaging with that content from a place of justice and truth? There's nothing wrong with looking something in the eye and engaging with it from a place of truth to say that, no, I see you. I see what's going on here, and I'm not going to just turn away and pretend like nothing's happening, right? Like that is also its own form of subjugation, right? Like when we get taught to spiritual bypass these sorts of things, which a large portion of humanity has, like just focus on your own practice, focus on yourself, focus on your life, focus on what is positive. Like that is a form of spiritual bypassing that actually is feeding them. It's actually a way more powerful thing to stand in your presence, to stand in your source presence and look it in the eye and say, I am speaking truth to that power and saying that that power is no longer welcome here. We, of course, don't need to be doing that every minute of every day, but these are the sorts of things we need to integrate and remember that when we are told to look away at times, when we are told to not integrate certain information, that is usually a mechanism of the darkness. That is usually a mechanism of the shadow attempting to keep us compartmentalized, attempting to keep us from looking at those parts of ourselves or the parts of humanity that are so confronting that we're not willing to engage with it. So what we're not willing to engage with, what we're not willing to speak truth about, will ultimately have power over us as well. So this is an aspect of us all coming back into our soul power to say, I am willing to stand in the face of this. I am willing to speak my truth. And I will not be silenced, I will not be afraid, and I will not be told that that feeds them. When I speak truth to them, that returns my power to me. So this is what we all want to integrate right now as we navigate this collective awakening, as we navigate this collective reckoning and this collective justice process that is unfolding. Because it is a massive, massive justice process that has to unfold for this planet. And again, this is our great awakening. This is it. This is how it happens. We start to see the truth and we start to name it, and we don't hide from it. And we don't let them hide from it either. Okay, that was a lot for now. I think I'm going to let this be the transmission for today. And I may have some more things to say on this topic as we continue to see what is coming to light and as we start to better understand how these dynamics even occurred in the first place on this planet, and as we collectively rise to say that this planet is being liberated, all souls are being liberated, the truth is being liberated, the hearts and minds of humanity is being liberated. We no longer consent to subjugation. We no longer consent to mind control. We no longer consent to what is out of alignment with our highest divine blueprint, our highest destiny, and our highest path forward in the light, serving the loving evolution of all. So remember, you are a sovereign being of light. It is your right to declare that and to declare your sovereign immunity from these games of evil on this planet, and to say that this planet is being returned to the light. We consent to heaven and to heaven only. So with that, thank you. Thank you for rising in your power with me today and reclaiming these parts of ourselves that maybe didn't want to look at this in the eye and maybe didn't want to speak these sorts of truths, and to say that we see through the illusions now, and we're also not afraid of the negative star races. We know that they've had a place here on this planet. We know that they have interacted with humanity in the past, but we're not afraid of them. We're simply telling them they're not welcome here anymore. And it's time for them to get a move on, and time for us to reclaim this planet in the light. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.